Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. Fun time had by all. I'm Petey Rave, and I would like to find me an ugly woman, or hell, man, non-binary. At this point, I'm like just lonely. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew, my quorum. We've got David.
I've recently been appreciating the works of Jay Ward, someone I think whose contributions to the world of animation have really gone underappreciated.
Mm-hmm. We've got Drew.
You know, it was a really funny show with The State.
Yeah, I think I remember that. And then we've got Brett.
You just knock him in the head with a stump.
Elbow, like bionic elbow
with a stump.
I'm going to temper myself because I had my outburst for the Record Breakers pre-show already.
Yes. Temper yourself like you some chocolate going on top of a...
Confession, I've never seen an episode of The State. It was just the first thing on my William Plex.
Most
for
overrated
context,
sketch show ever.
For context, come hang out with us live on twitch.tv/RebellyTV. In the meantime, in between time, we're talking about an album. We're talking about some music. And the provider of the album this week is Brett. Brett, what have you got for us this week?
Well, it's a very short, tight package of country music of varying quality and ear catchiness. I brought Jerry Reed's Georgia Sunshine, some swamp rock, if you will, some other kinds of country music that exists out there.
It's the other country. I love that in the genres. This is truck driving country. But we'll get to that. Let's talk about expectations.
Countrypolitan.
David, what were your expectations coming into this album?
My expectations coming into this album were not met in any way because when I gauged how excited Brett was to bring this album, I was expecting something a little more esoteric and off the wall. But when I looked up Jerry Reed, I saw that he was a country artist. So Brett was excited, which made me excited. So I was willing to dive in and have an open mind. The first time I tried playing this, I just wasn't in the right headspace for it. But on the second listen, I was a bit more palatable for it.
Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Jerry Reed was somebody I was, I've heard the name of, and being somewhat, when I listen to country, I tend towards older country, your Hank Williamses and the Dolly Partons and the whatnots, so it's a name that I recognize in passing, but I don't get into country enough to know names behind or beyond that. Like, everybody knows Hank Williams, everybody knows Dolly Parton. So, this is something that's a little bit past that. Come to find out, I knew him already from one of my favorite movies ever. So that's a thing.
Yeah, you knew him from that Scooby-Doo episode.
Yep, that one.
Yes, you knew his face as well. I was interested in seeing. I mean, I know that song. I know, we all know that song. We all know that movie. I've seen that movie outdoors.
Okay, fellas, you're gonna have to provide old DJM some context here.
Smokey and the
we talk about Smokey and the Bandit. I saw Smokey and the Bandit outdoors in Austin, Texas, being projected onto an
take a drink, everybody.
inflatable movie screen during South by. That was a fun experience. And then I watched Burt Reynolds, the late great Burt Reynolds, get interviewed right in front of me. So that was one of those cool nights. But the person I didn't see in person there because he had already passed by then is Jerry Reed. And I knew of him then. I knew the song, and that caused a certain expectation of like musically. And there's some of that, but then it does go into some other areas, and we'll get into where it goes now. Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, this is a very 1970s country album, because it does like a whole lot of different things, and about a handful of them are you gotta do some sifting. You gotta mine to get the gold. But I picked this album because it sort of spans it's a collection of enough of those songs on one album where you get the things that make Jerry Reed special with what he does. There's obvious skill with the fingerstyle guitar, and like the songs have strong grooves and funky licks that are in them, which is not necessarily what you expect in the genre as much. The songwriting and the crafting of the song in that sort of like splashes of whimsy and like showmanship, but also having like the songwriting that is of a quality and level that's beyond what is necessary if you're just like, cracking wise with your buddy Chet. But when this album has, a couple snoozers and slow tracks, but like there are also like production assistance on and performance by Chet Atkins. The old country gentleman himself shows up. Even with his guitar, but beyond that, like the musicians in here, the bass guitar gets a lot of room in these songs. There's use of organ in places where you would normally get like a tone wheel organ type sound. But like as for the main draw, it's really comes down to the chicken picking and the character that is Jerry Reed telling you stories. Yes. Because these songs are ballads. They're telling you the tales.
Yes.
But I'm actually curious about what the main high points of what people remember this who haven't like.
Yeah.
I have watched a lot of YouTube videos of old TV shows where Chet Atkins and Jerry Reed are like wearing their worst polka dotted shirts on TV in the 70s, and it's a great time. So
very
I'm
Adam Page aesthetic, PD Rave. Very Adam Page.
Exactly. With probably even more alcohol involved. David, how would you describe this album musically?
There's a lot of plucking going on. Lots of plucking. And I said to Petey a few days ago that this definitely had some vibes that I'm going to talk about later when I talk about one particular song that I guess is one of the standards. But there's some plucking, and there is some surprisingly good production for the time of this album. The actual engineering of this album sounded like some of these songs could have been produced and, dare I say, even written at Hitsville, USA in the Motown studio. It had that sort of similarity. Strangely enough, how a lot of genres, especially during this time, all kind of come from the same foundation. I think that there's some fun to be had here. I think that the songs that swing and shuffle are the highlights, for sure.
Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, getting into this and later finding more of what he was, not surprised at the musicianship I got, I guess. But the tone is definitely like 70s era country to a T. Like the moment I was like, yeah, we're listening to this older country record, like the 70s country record, and put it on, and my girlfriend was like, yep, nope, that's what you got. And it's all there. The Chet Atkins stuff is always great. There's all sorts of guitar work all over this that's really, really good. I believe chicken pickin's a word that you would use for parts of this record.
Correct.
It's just a fun word to say.
Yeah.
Something
I used the derivation plucking.
Yep.
Yes.
But there was some great stuff within that that just was going off. The lyrics range from telling you serious stories to telling funny anecdotes, which I think is where country can be at its best, when it's a very storied. To me, country is at its best when it's a story-driven medium, less so than a song-driven medium, if that makes any sense. But this is one of those things where certain parts of it, you kind of have to let ride because of the time. But some things probably wouldn't fly in modern day around certain songs. But other than that, like realizing that and taking it as a time capsule when you have to, but also like you're hearing the stories, you're hearing Jerry Reed stories, and whether he's doing that through acting or through music like he's doing here, pretty good at it. So
yeah, this is fun sing along novel country campfire music. Chicken picking.
Man, if somebody could play this around a campfire, I'd go camping with them.
Yeah. But yeah, this is fun sing along like country tunes. This is like a couple of these songs you can have fun, talk singing at the karaoke if they're available. There are the one thing I did notice is there are a lot of, he makes wide use of the just fading out because he didn't have an ending. It's just like fade out while singing the hook, which is fine. And then there's some standards here, which is fun. But yeah, it's a lot of like good guitar work, a lot of like fast paced, fun country tunes with funny stories and turns of phrases. But yeah, let's talk about those tracks because I'm eager to talk about specific tracks because I have a couple that I have in mind, some thoughts. But Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
So probably the A side has a few less songs that I'd want to put on than that talk about than the B side, but Mule Skinner Blues is a bluegrass standard. That's something that is not normally played in this manner, and normally has a substantial amount of yodeling. You are saved the yodeling, but instead you get a Chet Atkins guitar solo.
Yeah.
It's Mule Skinner Blues. Like go to any bluegrass night, and you'll hear that. Daisy even heard it and was like, "I think my uncle played this in family get together." Yeah, it's a thing. But when you flip that platter over and get on that B side, you get your friend old Amos Moses. So if you're a fan of the other programs on the Rebelli Network,
it's not Amos, it's Amos,
son. Like, the only person in the world that can call Chet Atkins son is Jerry Reed. Amos Moses, the thing is the tone, the funky jangle and twang to it. If you've been watching D&D when there's downtime, there was amplifier shop talk That's what we're looking for. That's a thing that old Squiggles and I have been looking for. We're searching for that clean tone jangle and twang.
Yeah.
And Amos Moses has that like a groove of a lick that like, you know, it's in 7/8 time. It's like it starts with a bend. It's like the first note is a bend. Yeah, it's a good time, and like musically, even without the lyrics, which make the song, it still could be packaged up into something that has a musical hook. Like it works. Preacher and the Bear, like I'll just like quickly hit that because of that the bass guitar lives on that song. There is a bass guitar doing things that you don't necessarily need a bass guitar to do, but it carries it along with the melody. But by far my favorite, and I think I have tried to peer pressure one of our working musician friends into using this song and you could clean up any if your closing track was Ugly Woman. I think it is the perfect country music song type. Like it's the lyrics and delivery like are perfect. The hook where they have that descending scale, like that hits right. The twangy like single coil like nasal sound with the organ in it, and then the bass guitar like really coming in, and it's like a song that literally anybody can relate to, and it's silly enough, but it shows up. Like I think Ugly Woman is the right amount of whimsy with enough like skill behind it. And it is a well written earwormy song, and like I think country music is best when it is that kind of music.
Yeah.
But Smoking Moonshine is not something that we
No. Or drinking tobacco.
That's definitely not that.
Yes.
Don't do that, kids.
Don't do that. Don't drink that tobacco. Yeah, David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
The second track, Good Friends and Neighbors, told a story, and I can dig songs like this when they're telling a story. Mule Skinner Blues. I know this one was a standard, and hearing this version invoked the old gag from The Simpsons, where Homer and Grandpa were medicine men, traveling from town to town until they were run out of town, and they ended up playing the getaway music on their way out. That's what that sounded like. That's all part of losing. For a second, I could have sworn that was the Funk Brothers backing up Jerry Reed. Like, what?
Yeah.
That was rather that one caught me off guard. And given that this would have been 1970, 71, it was like, wait, are they? Are they backing up Jerry? What's going on? And I would say that for me, my favorite song on this album was The Preacher and the Bear. All of the things that Brett said about Amos Moses, nothing against that song. I get it. That seems to be the song. But for me, that was The Preacher and the Bear. I think that one really hit me.
Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
So to me, Georgia Sunshine, right off the harmonizing is great. It kind of does that. It's the sound that you expect from this era of country, with many layered vocals, which is cool. Atkins getting to be Atkins on Mule Skinner Blues. Chet Atkins is kind of a legend, like, to be fair. So it's one thing that I was very welcome for. That, like, country bluesy guitar playing is always amazing, will always be amazing. It's just is what it is. The song I was referencing earlier was Amos Moses. It's a great song, it tells a great story, but probably wouldn't be released the same day. Be fair. An Ugly Woman. It's a funny song, yet it's a serious song, yet it's not a serious song. Like, it's that sort of lyrics.
It's a country karaoke song. It's that particular mix of serious, like, it's funny.
You get,
but it's
you get one of them.
It's not a novel.
It's not. It's funny, but it's not played up as like it's not trying too hard to be funny. It's one of those songs that if you know some good old boys,
droll. D-R-O-L-L. It's very droll.
If you know some good old boys and they're about 4 or 5 beers in, and this song comes on, they're all laughing and then they're crying afterwards.
Yeah.
Like that's just the song that you get. I think it's great. It's awesome. Like it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as you guys touched on the key tracks, it's like Amos Moses is one of those. It's the one. It defined. I was looking up, and it's like it's kind of his breakthrough. It defined Jerry Reed's like what everyone knew Jerry Reed for, which was the ha 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 and the son, and then telling a story,
Yep.
and that became the thing, and then eventually got expounded down. But it's cool. It's funny. It's fun. It's probably invoking things like alligator bait. Like probably not the best thing, and probably won't be something that you would bring back ever. So it's a product of its time. But it's telling a fantastical story about some seemingly fantastical person in a far off land. And then you pair that with Preacher and the Bear, and it's a similar idea, this crazy story. But I think you guys have talked about, maybe touch on those two songs. But what I like is that those two songs were sandwiching a song like Dreams, Sweet Dreams About Me, which could not have been tonally any more different without being in a different genre. Like it is.
That's how I felt about That's All a Part of Losing. Like,
yeah,
whoa,
those two songs.
Whoa, where did that come from?
It's like just the whiplash in sound all of a sudden just snuck in there. Was just out of nowhere. But I wanted to also shout out Good Friends and Neighbors. It's again another fun storytelling song. But the one thing that it's funny to me, and I couldn't get over it. Is how much I think Jerry Reed totally meant to finish that hook, but then didn't get around to it, and then it was recording time, and he just had to do something, so it went da-na-na-na-na-na. Like there was supposed to be something clever, like with friends and neighbors like you, something clever as a rejoinder for the hook. But then he never got around to writing it, so it just became da-na-na-na-na-na. And it's just like one of those it's just like one of those things that just I couldn't get out of my head. It was just that idea of like he had the whole thing written down. And he just like wanted to get around to writing that end of the hook. I'm gonna get that into the hook. It's like no. I was like no. It's like and it's recording time, and he hadn't finished it. It's like fuck. It's just fantastic. Let's bring it back around the horn and talk about some conclusive thoughts. David, how would you conclude on this album?
My dad probably would have loved Jerry Reed. He probably did. I know my dad did have an appreciation for some music in this genre, so I imagine he probably loved Jerry Reed. I loved the production of this album. I loved how clean and well done it sounded. Jerry Reed is great with a complete band behind him. He's really, really good. I would imagine that he explored that later on, because him with a band behind him is pretty solid. Overall, it was quick, but it was a good time.
Drew, how would you conclude on this album?
This is sort of why I like doing this sort of stuff. Jerry Reed's a name I know offhand. I guess I've seen him more acting than I've heard him singing. But it's a name I know in passing. It's a name I've heard of, but I've never dove too much into the music. But I will say this: if Chet Atkins wants to play music with you, you probably aren't terrible at playing music. It's this is sort of, in my opinion, country should have grown more from this mold if it was going to be more radio friendly. It changed for better or worse, depending on who you are. Worse if you're me. But this sort of
coldest take in the world. Drew thinks that country music becoming pop music was a bad thing.
Yeah.
Gotta love that hip hop.
Look,
I will recuse myself.
I don't mind music from Hill people, but now I have to get it with a lot more banjo than it used to have if I want anything good. I'm okay with that, but
I can bring a prog album with some banjo if you like.
that
Ain't no
I
wrong
can
with
make
that.
that happen. I can make that happen.
Ain't no wrong with that. Yeah. At the end of the day, like this is a fun look into a period of time of country music, and it's just some fun, good examples of the different aspects of that style of country music and of Jerry Reed, his personality and his approach and his style and his style of play. And I think it's definitely a fun experience. It's definitely worth checking out. It's not a long experience. It's only about 29 minutes total. But it's worth enjoying. It's worth experiencing. I would conclude also by shouting out the many uncredited people I see over here on Discogs.com. Which is a shout out to Henry Strelecki.
Henry. Oh, Hank.
Strelecki. Hank Strelecki. Norbert Putnam. Norbert Putnam. Ralph Gallant.
Those are some musicians from the 70s names.
Yes, Billy Sanford, Jerry Stembridge, Jimmy Capps, Pete Wade, Larry Butler, all that kind of, I guess, went uncredited for their work. So shout out to them.
Production by Chester Atkins.
Yes. Brett, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
I am no country music expert. I'm even less of a Jerry Reed specific expert. I did see that episode of Scooby-Doo, so I do know that. But I think that my opinion on country music is when it doesn't take itself seriously, it can be good. You can tell a non-serious story that is as good as a serious story, or you can just do a ballad of some guy who lives in a swamp. That's all right too. But like I just think that this is a strange mix of quality and earworminess and songwriting skill and the production. Like there's some weird 70s things where like he's speaking into a reverb tank and it's got like this weird like vocal reverb thing, but that's kind of, you expect it to sound like he's singing into a can, like a really expensive highly tuned can.
That's what you did in 1970.
It is, and I dig this, and there's only so much of it, but what we get is pretty fun, and the showmanship feels authentic. It could easily be a joke, and this went beyond a complete Ray Stevens joke album.
This is like Creedence Clearwater Revival, but like 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
It's a weird one to pull out, but okay. I'm here for it.
I'm here for it. All right. Those are our thoughts on Jerry Reed's Georgia Sunshine. Now we get to the main event of the evening. We get to the moment we've all been waiting for. We get to our haiku reviews, where we give them the 575. Finish all our thoughts off with some poetry. let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haikumuro
Get down to
numero
business.
Yes.
Defeat the Huns.
Yes. Haikumuro numero uno. David, what is your haiku?
Getaway music. Solid songwriting throughout. Not bad. A bit short.
Drew, what is your haiku?
Some good old country that got into some acting. Was decent at both.
Yes. My haiku. Novelty country with some talent showcases. A fun slice of time. And now we get to Brett. Brett, what is your haiku?
More hits than misses. 29 minutes of fun. Great chicken picking.
Chicken picking's a fun word.
Yes.
Like if you start your lick off with a bend, but a pre-bent bend, like yeah, you're
Or
doing
pluck
it right.
it if you have a different dialect.
I mean, hey, as long as you're using that entire claw, like you're doing it.
Yeah.
If you've got a guitar that's playing a low note and also picking a high note,
Yeah.
cool.
Hey, country music on a nylon string guitar. I'm all for it.
Yes. But yeah. Those are our thoughts on Jerry Reed's Georgia Sunshine. You can, of course, find this album on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers the home game. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. Follow along at home. On that Spotify playlist will be next week's record, and the provider of next week's record is Drew. Drew, what have you got for us next week?
As the dryer goes off in the background.
So,
this is an album that I've been listening to a lot recently because a podcast that I just recently got into is doing this album like line by line, like dissecting meanings and stuff. It's by an artist that I respect, and I've always liked this album and re-getting it into my consciousness. And
Are you bringing Beyonce?
thinking about it? Yeah, I'm bringing Beyonce's album with Lemonade on it. No.
all right.
I was about to say.
No.
I'm fine with that.
I'm bringing Donald Glover, otherwise known as Childish Gambino, with an album. I'm not going to say, like, you have to read the screenplay or watch the short film or go back and look at any of this weird social media, but the weird album that was in the middle of, like, a 2-year-long performance art piece that this man did with his entire life in interviews, but the album was called Because the Internet.
Kind of like almost bridging the gap.
I'm really surprised you guys haven't done this album already.
I did Camp instead because the internet's a weird thing to break apart.
He did
and
Camp.
Is a little bit easier.
He did Camp, and I did Awaken My Love. So, and now we get to Because the Internet.
We're getting to the weird one.
Yes.
If you thought Awaken My Love was weird.
Awaken My Love was like just captivating, but I don't know if it's weird.
It's a good album, but it's different.
Yeah.
Very good album.
There's a song within a song in this one. It gets weird.
It gets weird. We're gonna get weird. We're gonna get weird next week, but that'll be next week, and this is this week. And you can of course find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Drew is at XTruciferX. Brett is at HippieDBard, HIPBITYBIBBARD. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelly.net for this and other shows. Rebel TV on YouTube and Twitch. Follow us along at Twitch. We do Dungeons and Dragons on Tuesdays. Record Breakers on
PD Rave some
Wednesdays.
bits or something. Whatever
Yeah.
you kids do.
We do Space Trucking on Thursdays. At least most of us do, depending on if the game allows us. But a lot of fun times had by all with that schedule and other random streams whenever I feel like it. Check all that out. Subscribe, like, share, do all the things everywhere. Until next time, Hasta los huevos.
The short film does have Topanga in it. So.
Hashtag find Luke.
We already found him.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.